with the midterm elections 6 months out, 190 days today, Republicans hold a 12-point advantage when it comes to handling crime, the highest mark in ABC News Washington Post poll going back 32 years. Power panel now. David Avella, Chairman, GOPAC. Kris Knight, former political director of Priorities USA and founding executive director of Emerge Tennessee. Great to have you both. David, I'm going to come to you first just to react to some of what Nate was reporting on and what we're talking about today, and that is the persistence of we don't have enough cops, but we got a whole lot of crime.
These stories are examples, Harris, of how policy impacts the political environment. As Americans don't believe Democratic prosecuting attorneys are going to protect them because they want to lower the penalty on things such as murder or have no penalty for lower crimes, you see that the purchases of firearms are going up, particularly being increased amongst minorities and women voters. What is one of the big indicators of how someone's going to vote is whether they own a firearm. And you take that now we're getting ready here in June to have a special election in the Texas in a district that is 84% Hispanic. Joe Biden won by 5 points. And today the polling has the Republican up by 5 points.
So, Crystal, how is this okay? Like, how do you sell this to voters, particularly in Democrat-led cities that we're talking about, and expect them to say, okay, I'll just look past all of the danger for me. You've defunded the cops, but, you know, you'll do the right thing. How is this okay?
I don't think it's okay. And I think what we have to do, one of the things that David spoke about were the policies. We have to look at the policies that have not passed yet. So Build Back Better, there's $5 billion that has been set aside in that plan that Republicans refuse to pass. I stated last week that there are 21 states that have allowed permitless carry to happen in their states. And so there are more Americans carrying guns, but I don't think it's because people are, turning a blind eye and the Democratic Party is saying, we don't care about it. We're saying we need more money infused in these cities so that cities like Portland can hire more police officers to deter crime. They can also hire, or they can also put money towards community violence intervention programs that would also deter crime and drug-related programs as well. So it is an issue. Crime is a major issue, but it's not because people don't care about it. It's because cities don't have the necessary resources they need.
Yeah, no one is talking about no one caring about it. But just because you care about something doesn't mean that you know what to do about it. You can care all you want. I think Mayor Adams here in New York, brand new mayor, definitely cares. He was a cop on the beat for NYPD for 22 years. But he's working with a liberal DA who's soft on crime. And make no mistake about it, Crystal, it's there. They are taking the teeth out of the law, making certain things lesser crimes, if any at all. People, cases that normally would get adjudicated, those people are being let out. Let's talk about the liberal DA, David, in New Orleans in particular, and the case there. David?
Harris, you are hitting on a very key point here, which is when district attorneys and prosecuting attorneys say they're not going to enforce the law, you have a number of progressive attorneys who've all rallied around this thing called the Day One memo, which is the memo on the first day they take office, the laws they're not going to enforce. It says to criminals, hey, you don't have to worry about it. Crime, we're going to do it less. Focus on you. It's why you have organizations like Protecting Americans Project, EnforceTheLaw.us, an initiative GOPAC is supporting, to help take out those prosecuting attorneys who don't want to enforce the law and, in fact, will enforce the law to make communities safer. That's how we make things safer. You actually enforce the laws in place.
Real quickly, because I mentioned that campaign event up in Portland, Oregon, Republican governor candidate there, and people were out supporting that person. We are in a campaign season with the midterm elections 190 days away. There had better be some answers. I mean, all crime is bad crime, but when you have people in the streets who are willing to put pressure on people who are there to support a candidate, I mean, we can't tolerate that. We're going to see a lot of candidates on the trail. So in these Democrat-led cities, they have got to get it together for all categories of crime, but particularly when it comes to free speech. All right, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, is forecasting what could be a historic red wave in November for Republicans. Let's watch.
I think we'll pick up between 25 and 70 seats in the House. We'll probably pick up about 4 seats at least in the Senate. I would say that if you're in a district that Biden carried by less than 15 or 20 points, you're in great danger as a Democrat.
Well, the Speaker's grim prediction for Democrats comes as a new national poll shows Democrats are up by only 1 point in the generic vote for Congress. Look at that. They're almost, well, they're in a statistical tie right there. But Republicans now hold an edge on the congressional ballot for the first time since 2014 in an NPR Marist poll. That shows independents favor the GOP by 7 points on that generic ballot question. How do you strategize for this one? Because you can't ignore it, so you got to have a strategy, Crystal. What does it look like?
Well, I think one of the ways that you strategize around these grim numbers is you talk about what you've done in your respective district. You also talk about how redistricting has hurt and squeezed Democratic voters into particular districts. And so I'd be curious, based upon Gingrich's predictions, are many of those wins that he is predicting that Republicans picking up will be where districts have been redistricted or gerrymandered so that Democrats have a less advantage of winning in the ballot box. But I think ultimately, if I were strategizing to all of the candidates that are running, I would have them focus on what have you done in your district, what has passed, and what has the president done that's been helpful to your state so that voters can quickly identify those resources and those things and go to the polls confident about your candidacy.
You know what I find nuanced, too, about your answer there, Crystal, and it might be something that's very positive for Democrats to try to do. You didn't mention Biden until the very end. What you're talking about is doing what many people do, make politics local. Because his numbers are in the tank far below most candidates across the country. David, I'll give you last word.
Democrats are moving from break the glass to turn out the lights. This is going to be an election about the economics that people are feeling, and more voters believe it is the president's policies that are making things worse. 47% of independents now believe Biden's policies are making things worse. And even Celinda Lake, the respected Democrat pollster, in her focus groups, she hears from Democrats the words frustration, downtrodden, depressed. Because as they have said, the Build Back Better plan is a hodgepodge of policy that has no coherent message. That is not the way for Democrats to win elections this November.
You know, it's one of the reasons why when I hear certain Democrat strategists say, oh, well, the voters are grumpy, I do scratch my head because I think pain is a far place away from being grumpy. And what you're talking about, Crystal, again, you know, at least it's a positive for Democrats to look forward to talking about themselves rather than the president. All right, we'll move on. Good to see you both. Thank you.